Morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 70 of Saved You a Seat, Standard Tips and Tricks, Part 1. First and foremost, if you are in the first one where we had some crazy technical difficulties with GoToWebinar, thank you for joining us. We tried to get it rescheduled as quick as we could. I am just going to do a few housekeeping items so that Pam can take over here. I am Leslie Wyatt. I am our compliance director at SoftPro. These are meant to be informational. You can share them, you can use them, you can absolutely ask questions with the questions feature here in GoToWebinar. If whatever reason we don't get to your question, we will try and do a follow-up with you, but please feel free to throw your questions in there. We also record these and we will send out a link at some point over the next week so that you can access them and review them if you need to, or share with your peers or use them as training, however you see fit. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our wonderful trainer who has agreed to help us out today. We have Pam Watson, and as I said, she's a trainer at SoftPro. So Pam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Leslie. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday after a long weekend. So glad to see everyone joining us today. Again, my name is Pam, as Leslie mentioned, and I am a trainer here at SoftPro. However, a little fun fact, I used to own my own title company in Tampa for 15 years, and I was actually a customer of SoftPro back in the day. So I am a super SoftPro fan. So I totally understand what it's like coming from your side as the client and customer, and also from this side now as a trainer. So hopefully all of these tips and tricks that we'll go over today will be super helpful for you. I was talking to Leslie earlier, and Ellen, that is also on here with us, about having been a customer of SoftPro's for many years. These are just great tips and tricks that I didn't even know back in the day that would have really been beneficial to me as, you know, from that side, from the title perspective side as a user. So hopefully these are going to be really helpful to you all, and you'll have a wealth of knowledge to be able to share within your organizations with your other teammates and keep passing that knowledge along. So we will go ahead and get started, and let me just minimize this here. Well, I'll go over a brief intro of kind of what I'm going to cover today as well before I change my screen over to Proform. We are going to cover some really great tips and tricks that help us work a lot more efficiently every day within Proform. So just a little synopsis of what we're going to cover. I'm going to cover keyboard shortcuts, and that is dramatically speeds up your data entry and file navigation. So I'm excited to show you all those. Order notes is the next one I'll cover, and that's a great built-in workflow feature that kind of allows you to leave permanent timestamp notes right inside your file. And then we're also going to cover lookup tables or custom lookup tables, and these are user-defined databases that are going to allow you to store repetitive data. So it's going to allow you to pull up that information quickly, retrieve it, and insert that into your closing file. So it's a really great time-saving cheat sheet that will eliminate you from having to manually retype a lot of information. Also minimizes typos, right? Because that information is already input correctly. So a couple of great benefits to our lookup tables. Also going to cover attachments. This is probably one of my absolute favorite folders to talk about. It's kind of like a digital file cabinet or a digital file folder where you can drop items such as PDFs, scans, emails, even Excel spreadsheets in there that are in your actual folder. So it kind of allows you to store all of that important order-related information in one central organized place. So I'll go over that. We're going to learn how to overlay a file or a template, and this again is a handy feature that allows you to overlay information or data from one file to another, or even from another custom template that we might create. So we'll go through that process. And then last but not least, we will cover user ReadyDocs, and I'll show you how to customize or pre-build your documentation folders so you can create those at your fingertips. So documents that you use all the time, such as maybe title commitments or policies or settlement statements, those all automatically populate with your data from your closing files. So we'll go through how to set that up and how to generate those documents without having to retype all of that information. So that's our summary, and let's go ahead and dive in. Let me just pull up my Proform screen for us. All right, so just making sure everybody can see that. Let me make sure it's as big as I can get it to. Sometimes it looks a little bit small on the screen, so hopefully we've got it all good. Okay. All righty, so let's go ahead and dive in. So the first thing, again, we're going to cover is our keyboard shortcuts. So the very first one I'd like to show you is our F1 function key on your keyboard, and that's going to bring us up to our, I like to call it kind of our owner's manual, like for your car, for example, right? It has everything you can possibly imagine. So if you'll hit your F1 key on your keyboard, go ahead and go in here. And you, again, you can be anywhere within the program and hit your F1 key. It's going to pull up, and let me drag this over so you all can see. It will pull up this SoftPro Corp web page, and it has all of our applications on here. And for example, we're going to be working in Proform today. So if we click on Proform, for example, and I click on our Getting Started item, there is a handy dandy shortcut, keyboard shortcut cheat sheet that you probably want to download and keep that handy, because there are a lot of great tips and tricks on this. I'll show you what this looks like, for example. So there's a lot of ones. We'll cover the most commonly used ones today, but there are 3 pages. So as you can see, there's quite a few tips and tricks on here. So this is a really great handy reference for you all to use when you are starting to work in Proform and really want to save some time. So that's there for you. And again, you get to that by pressing your F1 function key, and then log on over to our Proform section, and then you're getting started, and you'll see that there. And there's also, some videos here, webinars, a lot of good information. There's also a search bar. So if you're searching for any specific topic, whatever, 1099s, anything like that, you can get information from this page. I'll go ahead and just show you that, for example. So there's a plethora of information here. You're going to have some videos, some guides. So anything you are looking for in our programs, any of our applications, is available here on this web page. And also, one important thing I also like to point out is you can also access any of our trainings as well from this page. So some really good opportunities each month to not miss out on, such as the one we're on now, but they're also, you can register for any of our monthly trainings that are held by what version you're on. So if you're on Standard Enterprise, you have separate ones for Standard and Enterprise, and then of course separate ones for Select as well. So that can be found under our training, like Save to a Seat's the one we're on today. There's other free trainings that we do monthly as well. So just remember F1 help, and that will get you to all of that information. So let me get back out of that one. And the next one we are going to talk about is our F2 function key. This is one of my favorites that I did not know about, but F2 is a magic eraser, as I like to call it. So let's say, for example, we go into our any field within SoftPro, and this is for any red text, so any user entered text that you enter and you need to change. So let's say our sales price changed, for example. If I use that F2 key, it's going to quickly erase what's already in there and let me type in what else I need to type in and mosey on. So instead of having to backspace or delete, it is a quick magic eraser for anything that is might need to be deleted. So you can go on and press that F2 key, it'll erase it, and you can type in what you need to type in. Also, another tip and trick, let's say, for example, you're in a field in Proform. We'll just use the sales price for an example, and you hit that F1 key that we just spoke about. It's going to bring you right over to that help information for that particular field. So if you are in any field in Proform, you can, or any of our applications, you hit F1, it's going to bring you to the actual field that you're in directly to that information help screen. So that's another really cool feature to know about. I wish I had known about years ago, and it's super great to be able to pull up that information for that. So that's another one. The next one we will cover is going to be our F6 function. So if you're in your file and you hit the F6 function key, if it will work for us, there we go. And you know the name of the field that you are looking at. Let's say you've got to make a change to your legal description. If I type in L, it's going to bring me right down to the L section. I can go into find legal description that I am looking for and double click on that, and it will bring me right over to our legal description field. So again, you can hit that F6 key and whatever you are looking for, and it is alphabetized, so that helps. So if you need to make a change in your sales price, for example, again, we can go ahead and find where that's located, double click on it, and it'll bring you right over to that particular specific field. The next one we're going to look at is going to be our F7 key. So let's go into our legal description, for example. We'll go ahead and go down to our legal description. And anytime you see these arrows to the right of a field, that means this is an expandable field or a scrollable field. So there's a bigger screen behind that particular field. So, and the way to access that is to hit Control Z, like zebra. It will open that up for you. But there's a spell check within there. You can hit F7 as well. So you can go ahead and hit F7. It will pull up a spell check, has its own dictionary in there, so you can fix anything. I notice I have records spelled incorrectly, so I can fix that, and then ignore the ones that are fine, and it'll tell you that your spell check is complete. So it's a super handy feature, especially if you have one of those really long legals, to go ahead and run that spell check on, and that way you know all of your information is accurate in your documents. So that's a really nice one that's frequently used as well. The next one we are going to talk about is our F8 key, and that's our calculator. So a lot of people are unaware of this one. I know I was. So how would we use a calculator, for example? So let's go into our general tab and into our deposits field. And let's say we have, maybe this is a builder file, right? And we have multiple deposits that were required. Maybe they had some upgrades they had to make a deposit for, their initial down payment deposits required. So if you have more than one deposit, you can actually, there's a calculator in here. So if I'm in this deposit field and I hit that F8 key, it's going to bring up this pop-up that allows me to enter the amount, whatever I needed to add, right? So let's say we had maybe a $5,000 initial deposit, insert that plus sign, and maybe they had to bring another $7,500 for the extras that they brought. Maybe they added some more extras after that a couple of times, maybe $1,500, and maybe they had another $1,000 at the end, right? So we've got all of our deposits here. So I've entered them all with a plus sign in between. If I hit OK, that calculator is running behind the scenes, and it will enter our $15,000 for our total deposit there. Again, if you want to change that without all of those decimals, you can put that F2 key as well. But just so you know, that calculator behind the scenes will run for you. Insert whatever numbers you need, the plus sign, hit OK, and it will go ahead and calculate that total function or that total deposit amount for you. The next one we'll go over is going to be our F9 key. So let's say I'm going to go into our lender screen because that's a common one where lookup tables are used. A couple of different ways we can identify if a field has a lookup table. And the first one is very obvious, right? It's got our lender, literally the words lookup here, so that lets us know there is a lookup table there. But the other way you can find out whether there's a lookup table or not is by checking your status bar. So, and that's that gray bar here towards the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll see the letters LKUP. So that means there is a lookup table in that particular field. So if you go into this loan officer one, for example, It doesn't say lookup, right? But if we look in the bottom right of our lookup, of our status bar, you'll see those LKUP letters, and that lets you know there is a lookup table for that particular field. So let's go back up to our lender, and our F9 key is how we access those lookup tables. So I'm going to go place my cursor back in that lookup code field. I'm going to press my F9 key, and then it's going to bring up whatever lenders I might have added to this particular lookup table. So this will allow you to add entries to these lookup tables. This is kind of goes along with our custom lookup tables here. So you can change a lender. Let's say, for example, our lender changed. They were originally going to go with United Wholesale, and they have decided they got a better rate with USAA, so they are going to now switch to USAA. Because I have this lender USAA in my lookup table, I can highlight the lender I need, double click, and it's going to pull all that information in for me instead of me having to go in and manually type all of this information, right? So it's a very handy way to keep those common lenders that you all work with quite a bit in that lookup table, so it saves you a lot of time having to type those in. So let's say while we're on lookup tables, let's just touch base on how we would add something to our lookup table. So let's go ahead. Let's say we are going to change lenders, and let's say we've got, we started working maybe with Rocket Mortgage. So I'm going to call this one Rocket and enter that information. I'm going to F2 with my magic eraser, right? Type in Rocket Mortgage here. F2, enter what I need in this information screen. And let's see, we've got an address. We'll just leave it San Antonio, and then we'll say all right, and let's say that information is correct. So now we've entered a new lender that may not be in our lookup table. So what we will want to do is go back up to this first lender lookup field, hit our F9 key again, so we access that lookup table. Anytime you're adding to a lookup table, you will want to make sure you add at the very bottom where it says end of list. The reason for that is if you were to leave your cursor over another entry that's already in here, that's going to try and override that and confuse the system. So you want to make sure you always go to the end of the list where it says here at the bottom. Yours might have, if you do have lookup tables, yours might be longer than mine, but you can go ahead wherever that end of that list is and hit insert entry, and there you will see we have added our new lender information in there. So now whenever I need to access Rocket Mortgage, I can go ahead and pull that in by hitting my F9 key, putting my cursor on that Rocket Mortgage, double clicking, and that is as easy as it is to modify. Let's see if they've got a new fax number, for example. You can modify them as well by clicking on that entry, hitting modify table, and then whatever information has changed for you, or you can actually modify the whole table. But if you want to change their phone number, for example, let's go back and say their fax number changed. So we will say we got a new fax number for them. And I want to go back up to my original entry here at the lookup field, press F9, and then I'm going to go to Rocket again. Now I'm going to replace that entry, right? So, because I've updated some information. So if I go on over, then it has updated our new fax number for us on that screen. So these are super great tables to keep. Again, if these are lenders you work with all the time, another common place that we see lookup tables that are frequently used is going to be your real estate agents, your underwriters, for example. And just while we're speaking of agents, the lookup table for your real estate agents, let me just go to our real estate screen so I can show you what I mean. So our real estate agents are the only lookup table in Proform that is shared. All the other ones are specific to that section. The listing and selling agent lookup tables are combined because an agent can sometimes be a listing agent on a transaction, but also they might be able to be a selling agent on a different property. So if we go into, for example, this one, place our cursor in the listing agent field, press F9 to access our lookup table. We're going to see this is our lookup table here. If we go down to our selling agent lookup table, right, our selling agent field, and we press F9, we're going to see those same options. So that is the only place in Proform where that lookup table is shared. So you can add that information, add lender or realtors that you work with frequently in there. Another common place we might use a lookup table is those HOAs. If you are in an area, I'm in Tampa, I'm in Florida, so it's very difficult to find a property without an HOA here. So we have a plethora of HOAs. So there's a lot of entries in our lookup tables for those. So those are just some good examples of where you might use those, how to access them, how to modify them. So we'll go on and continue on with our shortcuts. Alrighty, so those are all of our function key shortcuts. The next ones are our control shortcuts. So these work kind of the same way as they would like in Windows. For example, the first one we'll cover is Control S, like Sam. So if you hit your Control key and your S, then that is your save function. So it's noting I made some changes, and do I want to go ahead and save that? We're going to click OK. So you can use your Control S for save. That is the same function that this particular icon that looks like an old floppy disk will perform. So you can either use your Control S, or you can also use that save icon as well. The next one is going to be Control D. So let's go into our notes section. So our screen that says file number, settlement date, and notes. Let's say I need to leave a note in my file, and I use my Control D, like dog function. That will print a date right there, right? So let's say sent title commitment to lender. So it's going to date it for us, right? So the next one we can also use is Control T if we want to timestamp it. So you can use your Control T there. Last but not least, we have a Control U, which means user stamp. So who's ever entering this note, if you press Control U, it's going to put that information, that person's name there as well. So another quick shortcut is, let's say you've got another note you want to add, and you need it to be dated, timestamped, and user stamped. You can use Control A, and that will do all of those functions at once. So if we do that, you'll see the date, the timestamp, and the username, and then you can add your note here as well. Balance, TD with lender, and you're good to go. So you can continue to add your notes, and this will be in sequential order, so it kind of tells a story of the file. So a lot of people aren't even aware that these are here. So that is some really cool ways to document your note in your file. So alrighty, and the next one we can do, let's go back over maybe to our legal description, for example. And if we have something, maybe we have a long legal, right, in our that we need to copy and paste. You can copy and paste into these fields as well. So Control C, just like you would on a Word document. And I'm just going to drag in some language here. I'm going to copy. I have a Word document open here. So I'm going to do Control C, and then I'm going to move that over and just say I need to paste this right here. So you can do Control V like Victor, and it will paste that information for you. So this is a huge time saver. If you've got a text document with a very long legal description, you can copy that in and paste it right into your file. So Control C again copies it from wherever you're copying from. Control V like Victor will paste it into that field where you need to paste it. All right, and that's handy again. Remember Control Z if you want to open up this scrollable field, and you might want to paste it at that point and where you can see that entire legal description. And then of course you could hit your spell check, F7, and it would run the spell check for you as well. So a couple little tips and tricks there. So those are our most frequently used shortcuts. And remember, you can go back to hit F1 and into Proform and getting started, and you can print out that entire keyboard shortcut cheat sheet to keep that handy for you. So hopefully this was helpful for you. The next thing we want to talk about is our attachments folder. And again, this is one of my favorite things. Every order that you open in Proform will have an attachment folder. And the attachment folder is located, you can access it by this icon bar at the top. It looks kind of like an open copy machine. So if we click on that, it's going to bring up your attachments folder. So anything that you have dropped in here will be in here. So if you have a FedEx label, maybe you've got a final HUD statement, you might have dropped in your CPL letters in here, etc. So the great thing about this folder is you can add PDFs, you can add emails, you can add Excel spreadsheets. So let's say you're working on maybe a multifamily unit, right? And there's 4 units, for example, and you've got renters, and they've got rent prorations and security deposits and all of that information in an Excel sheet. You can drag and drop that Excel sheet right into this folder, and it's going to be in your document attachment folder. So whatever format you are dragging and dropping in, so if it's an Excel spreadsheet, it's going to save it as an Excel spreadsheet. If it's a PDF, it will save it as a PDF. So if it's an email, let's say you've got, maybe there was a repair situation that came up on the inspection, right? So there's a lot of back and forth that went into that conversation between the agent and the buyer and the seller and the lender, and you want to make sure that that information is readily available down the road should you need to access that and refer back to it. So you could save your email chain and drag and drop that over as well into your folder. So let me just pull up something, for example, maybe on my, it'll open up here. It's a little slow in a demo environment sometimes. There we go. So let's say I just want to drag and drop something in my attachments folder, right? So I'm going to drag and drop this PDF. So I'll drag that there, and there you go. It's literally that simple. So whatever you're dragging, it can be a Word document, an Excel document, etc. You can go ahead and drop that in here. So the other cool things about this folder is you can rename things, right? So let's say it's FedEx, but you have this long tracking number, but what was this FedEx for? So we can edit the names by clicking on that item that we are wanting to rename. And let's say we want to add, this was the lender package, right? So we know what label this is for. We can add that information in there. You can also delete something. So let's say I don't need this welcome SoftPro man in this folder, so I can highlight that, I can delete that. And it'll say you want to, are you sure? You can say yes, and it will remove that item. Or maybe you dropped something in the wrong file and you need to delete that. So that's how you would delete it. You can also email directly out of this folder. So let's say I need to send my CPL letter over to my lender. So if I highlight that item and I click on email, if I've entered email addresses already for my lender, I could just simply have selected one. But since I haven't entered my lender email yet, I can simply click OK, and it's going to bring up a blank Outlook email. Usually opens on a different screen, so let me drag it over. There it is. It's got my email, my CPL attached, and now I can say, you know, whoever my person is, Lisa Lender, for example, at Rocket Mortgage, and I could type in my message and hit send, and your document is on its way to the lender. So super easy. I'm not going to save that in there. So that is a really cool feature to kind of keep. It's kind of like a file cabinet or a file folder. Back in the day, we had the actual physical file where we would keep all of our contracts and addendums and, you know, all of that information. So this is where you can drag and drop that information, and it will be easily accessible to you within this attachment folder. All right, so let me hit OK and close out of this. So the next thing we are going to talk about is our ReadyDocs. So on the left side of our screen, you can kind of see this is where all of our tabs are, right? Our general tab, our title insurance tab, or if it's a HUD file, we'll have our HUD file, our HUD tab. If it's a CD, we'll have our CD tab. So this is all of our like data entry screens where we enter all our information. On the right side of the file is going to be where all of our ReadyDocs are stored. So these are all the documents that are available to you. So your list might look a little different than mine, and that's because these are customized to the way you do business in the location that you do business in. So when your SoftPro is installed in your system, if you're in a specific state or you have different underwriters, for example, your ReadyDoc tree will be customized to meet those business needs for your state or states and your underwriters. So what we want to focus on today is going to be our user docs ready tree, right? And that is going to be located right here. So you can see in my ReadyDocs tree, I've got Fidelity information, I've got Georgia information, Florida documents, because those are the two states that I mostly work in. So mine has been customized to reflect that. I've got Old Republic title here as well. And the way that you can see there, they look like little file folders. I kind of think of them as file cabinets. And then if we want to open our file cabinet, there's a plus sign located right next to our yellow folder. So if we click on that, it's going to expand that. And again, within this folder, there can be additional folders as well, right? So subfolders in that main category. So this kind of tells you, what's within that filing cabinet, and each of these can be expanded. So if you're looking for a title commitment or something, again, they can expand, continue to expand. If you want to shrink those back up, as I call them, or close that drawer, you can hit that minus sign, and then it will close right back up to where we started. All right, so before we go into our user ReadyDoc, creating that and how we set that up, let's just kind of make sure again that we know where everything is. So again, our SoftPro ReadyDocs tree is the documents that will be uploaded when your version of SoftPro is installed. So you have your order tracking file cabinet, your title insurance file cabinet. So that's kind of where all of your title policies and your title documents live. Order tracking is kind of where your order summaries live. So we can open that folder, for example. And let's say I want to take a look at my order summary for this file with the notes that I entered, right? So if I double click on that, that's how you access a document. Highlight or double click on the document you want to pull open, and it will appear on your screen. So this is where we have, where we entered our notes earlier, right here. And also, this is all the information that has been entered in our data screens. Anytime you see blue text in ProForm, in SoftPro, these are hyperlinks. So blue text is a hyperlink. So let's say I need to add a note or maybe modify something. So if I hover over this blue text and I click on it, it brings me immediately over to that information, right? And maybe I need to add another note in here. So I can do Control A to date stamp it. And I am going to say scheduled signing with seller. And X, and it's going to update that on this screen as well. So if you need to make a change to anything, maybe their loan amount changed, again, blue text is hyperlink, hover over where you want to make a change, click on that, and then you can hit your F2 key to erase incorrect information. So maybe they increased their loan amount a little bit, and you can go ahead and make that change, X out, and then it's going to have updated it. So anytime you're making a change, for example, let's say Betty Buyer has a middle initial. So if you want all of your changes to carry through on all of your documents, it's important to make those changes within that contact screen field. Because if you only make, let's say you're on your title commitment, for example, Schedule A, and you go ahead and correct it on Schedule A, it's only going to correct it on that document because we've not made the change in the contact screen, and we've only made it on that particular document. So when we go to print our rest of our package and our closing documents, that middle initial will not carry through. So it's really important if you're making any kind of change like that, that you do make that change within the contact screen. So this is another quick reference, a quick way to get back to that. Again, hover over where you need to make a change, click on that and it'll bring you right over. So this is where you would want to make those changes. For instance, a middle initial or something like that. And you can see at the bottom, it goes ahead and inserts that everywhere. So the vesting, again, it's inserted that middle initial. So that means it's going to follow through. And you can see this is black text. So this means it's system generated. It pulled that information from another part of the program. And that was from where we made that correction here. So now we know when we go and print our documents, all of our documents are going to be correct because we have updated that in the right place. So that's just another little tip and trick, some time savers that can keep you from having to think, oh my gosh, why did my documents not print out correctly? I made that correction on my Schedule A, but that's why, because it didn't get made in the contact screen, so it didn't follow through on all your documents. All righty. So we are now going to talk about this user ReadyDocs tree. So what the user ReadyDocs tree is, this is rather than having to go through all of these, plethora of file folders here and find the document that you want to use or the affidavit that you need, maybe use, several of the same documents on each of your transactions, and you don't want to have to go fish them out each time that you want to print them for your transaction. So you can actually create your own custom ReadyDocs tree for those documents. So let me just minimize these. And how we do that, to add anything to this user ReadyDocs folder. So you can see right now there's no plus sign, right? There's nothing next to this yellow folder. And that just simply is because we haven't added anything. There's nothing in that folder. So there's nothing for us to open that file cabinet to see. So the way we would add something to this ReadyDocs folder is you first have to go up to your menu bar here into Tools, into ReadyDocs Manager. So go ahead and click on ReadyDocs Manager. And then this is going to pull up, you can see on the left side, that SoftPro ReadyDocs tree that we just looked at a moment ago, which is where all of those documents are stored. And the right side is everything else, right? These are our standard SoftPro installed ReadyDocs that are uploaded when your installation happens. And then these are your specific folders, right, that have been created for your states and or your underwriters that you work with. All right, so let's say we want to go ahead and add something to our ReadyDocs folder. So what we can do is we can, again, expand our SoftPro ReadyDocs tree on the left. And let's say we always use this particular, we can go into escrow and closing, and I have a HUD file open, so I'm going to say I use the specific HUD file. So one of two things, we can drag the entire file folder over into our ReadyDocs tree. So let's go ahead and do that. And now we see there's a plus sign, right? So now if we expand that, we can see we've added that HUD statement folder into our own ReadyDoc folder too, right? So let's go ahead and expand that. And then here's all of those documents. You can also expand this first and add specific documents. So if you want to make sure maybe you only use legal size paper, for example, you can add just one document to that ReadyDocs tree as well. So where you'll see that file balance sheet here. So you can individually select documents from your folder, or you can select the entire document. So if you have tax affidavits or tax proration summaries, any document that you want to add to your folder, you can certainly do that by simply dragging and dropping that over into that section. So it's as easy as that to go ahead. You can also delete them. So let's say I don't want to use this. I selected the wrong one. I can delete out there as well. So another thing you can do in this user doc tree. So what this does, the way we've created it now, is everyone in your office has access to that user ReadyDocs tree. So everyone would have the same access to those documents. So let's say you have individual employees that do different functions. Maybe somebody is just a title person, right? They do title policies, title commitments. Someone is a pre-closer. Someone might be just a closer. So they can also create their own individual file folders or subfolders as well. So to do this, you would highlight this user ReadyDoc tree and click over to the right, insert new folder. And then let's say I'm going to set, a folder for myself. And there you go. So now I have my own folder, right? So let's create another couple of folders. So again, we're going to go back up to our user ReadyDoc tree. I'm going to insert another folder. Maybe I've got another employee by the name of Joanne. And maybe I've got one more person that does our policies, and that's going to be David. So I have now created an individual folder for each one of these individuals. And now I can go ahead and drop documents in there. So let's say I want to drop this HUD folder down there. So I can go up to highlight that, copy, hit that, then hit your paste button, and it has copied that HUD folder. So you can, it doesn't, when you copy something, it doesn't remove it from the list, it will just copy it into that particular folder. So you can, again, drag and drop from this left side of your screen, or if you've got something, let's say, David is our policy person, so he wants to make sure he's got all of the fidelity information in his folder. So we can, again, highlight that folder, copy that folder, and then go on down to where David's name is, and then hit paste. So now David has access to his fidelity folder that you can see there. So it's super easy to kind of customize and individualize that. You can also create categories, right? So let's say maybe you all have a refinance, you want to create a folder for your refis. So you want to, again, go where your user ReadyDoc tree is listed, insert new folder. You can hit refinance, and then maybe you have another one for purchases. So let's go over to our ReadyDocs tree, insert a new folder, and let's say purchase. And then you can go ahead and drop the documents that you all print for each of those types of transactions right into that folder. So everyone in the office can easily access your standard documents that you print on all of those transactions within those folders, instead of having to go all the way through these documents in your SoftPro ReadyDocs tree one at a time and select them. So, and then when you get ready to print anything, you can print the whole folder. You can print only some of those documents. So it's a lot easier to set those up so that you're not having to, again, dig through that entire ReadyDocs tree to find those documents and print those individually. All righty, so now, excuse me, last but not least, we are going to talk about overlaying. I'm just going to say no in this case. All right, so now we are going to talk about overlaying a file or a template. So overlaying is a function within ProForm where we can take information from one file and basically do a mass copy and paste to another file. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to create a new file. So I'm going to go up to my file menu button in new. And I'm going to create a new, let's say a new HUD file, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and select what type of file I'm creating. And again, I'm creating a file, right? Because I've got that radio button selected file instead of template. And it's going to pull in my standard default template screen for my HUD file. So I'll go ahead and select OK. It's going to create our new file. But when I go into Express Order Entry and open it, you can see basically I don't have any information here, right? It's a completely blank file. So, but let's say I have a previous file where we closed the purchase transaction for our customer, and now rates have gone down. Wouldn't that be nice? And everyone is now refinancing again. So our customer is now going to do a refinance, and I've done a search in my ProForm, and I realized, oh, I've closed this file before. We closed that purchase file. So I can actually pull in that information. So some of that information is going to be the same, right? Our borrower is going to be the same. Our property information is going to be the same. Our legal description, our title exceptions, all of that information is going to be the same. So rather than have to start over and manually type that information, we can actually move that information from our existing purchase file over to this new refinance file. So I'm going to change this file type on my new file to a refinance, because that's what transaction type I'm going to be doing now. And now I can now start to use that overlay function. This is where that overlay piece is our best friend. So when we've got a file open, we can do, go up to File. Oops, let me go ahead and actually go out of here. Let's just do it. Oh, hang on just a second here. Yep, I'm in my new file. Okay, so I'm already in my file. This is my new file number 40. So I can go up to File, and then there's that overlay file template option. There's also an icon for that, which is going to be the icon to the left of our magnifying search icon. And that's going to be overlay file template. So you can do that from either of those spots. Works the same exact way. So I'm going to go up to File, Overlay, and it will bring up this. So now it's going to ask us, it's telling us it's asking us what we want to overlay from. So we have an old file. So all of our data files you're going to have set up in your data folder. You go back to yours might be set up a little bit different than mine. Oops, there you go. Now you'll notice again, two things you want to check. So none of our data files are coming up because in the bottom right hand corner, I've got my templates selected rather than my data. So it's going to pull over that. So we want to make sure there's a drop down here. So if you're overlaying, you're going to want to double check you're in your data folder, but also that you have selected data. And the way you tell is data files and with .pfd for data extensions, and your template folders and T for template, so .pft. So we're going to want to make sure that we select the correct type of file to overlay. So we'll do that, and there you go. So it's going to pull up that information. So you're going to need to know, of course, what that prior file number was. Highlight that file number, click Open, and it's going to overlay that information for us. So now when we go into our data screen, you can see all of that information is now completed. So we would change what we need to change, right? It's no longer going to be a purchase, it's going to be a refinance. We no longer have a seller because Bobby and Betty now own the property, so we don't need our sales price. Again, we can use that FT magic eraser for any information that we may not need. All of our information here, we say, let's stay the same, right? Our address stay the same. They're going back through Rocket Mortgage again. We don't have any agents this time, right? Because we have a refinance transaction. So there's no agents in this one. So we can go ahead and F2 any of that information out, and that will make sure that we only save the information that we need to save in our particular folder. We can update our closing transaction or settlement date. Let's say maybe they're trying to close by June 30th, and we can do all that. So it's that easy to go ahead and change your information or overlay that information. You can also overlay a template. So let's say you create a new folder and you want to overlay a template, right? Add more than one seller. So it's telling you, so this is another thing. It will give you errors if you miss something. So that's the good thing also. Again, you can go back in here and correct any of that and then close that information. So let's say we wanted to create a new folder and we want to pull in a template instead. So if I go up to File, New, and let's say I want to create a new CD file, and it's right now pulling that CD default template, but I can also browse out to any other templates that I've created. So it can go into our template folder. And let's say I've got, this is a refi, so I want to pull in that refi template, right? So I can select that template, hit OK, and now it's going to pull in that refi template. So I can have added any of my regular information into that. My settlement agent information, any fees that I normally charge on our refi template. So our underwriter may already be in there. So that's, again, this is just an easy way to pull in that information instead of having to re-enter all of that manually. It also saves on typos, right? And the information in your template is entered correctly. So it is that easy to go ahead and pull in a template as well as a data file. So I will close out of that. All righty, I think that about wraps us up for today. Hopefully you all found this information super helpful and informative. And we definitely appreciate all of you for joining us today. I'll turn it back over to Leslie.
Thank you, Pam. Thanks so much for all that information. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Just a reminder, as we had a few questions, we will send out a link to this recording some point over the next week with a recap of what was included in this webinar. So with that, we are going to sign off. Again, we appreciate you all for joining us, and we look forward to hosting you on the next Save USC.